Welcome, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kaisa Sirocco, and I work in Alumni Relations for the Goodman School of Business. I would like to begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which Brock University was built is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Welcome and thank you for joining us as we acknowledge and celebrate the Goodman School of Business Distinguished Graduate for 2020. It is my privilege to introduce Dr. Andrew Godes, Dean of the Goodman School of Business, for a welcome from Goodman.
Welcome to our alumni, students, faculty, staff, friends, and community members to the 18th Annual Distinguished Graduate event. Thank you, Kaisa, for introducing me. Each year, we recognize a member of our alumni community and offer you the opportunity to hear from an outstanding leader, our 2020 Distinguished Graduate of the Goodman School of Business, Mr. Sean Washchuk. The Distinguished Graduate Award recognizes individuals with outstanding professional, educational, community, volunteer, or entrepreneurial achievements with at least 15 years postgraduate experience. Recipients are selected by a committee made up of the Goodman School of Business executives, and we announced Sean as this year's recipient at our virtual homecoming celebration in September. Of course, it was a different homecoming in comparison to our previous years. It was virtual, but it was all the same, very special moment for us to be able to announce Sean as our distinguished recipient. So it's our honor today to pay greater tribute to him with a special speaking engagement that you're all privileged to be able to listen to him and also contribute with questions. Now, again, under normal circumstances, we would be gathered together in the Goodman School of Business atrium, hosting a reception in honor of Sean. But in this virtual environment, you'll have the opportunity to hear from an inspiring leader in the business community and how his career exemplifies the Goodman values of passion, perseverance, and professionalism. So I would like to invite Monica Mcdonald, one of our Goodman student ambassadors, to provide a brief introduction of Sean. Monica.
Godes. Is it off? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica McDonald. I'm a Goodman School of Business ambassador currently at the undergraduate level. I'm finishing my final term in the Bachelor of Accounting program co-op option. I will also be enrolled in the Masters of Accountancy program commencing January 2021. I am excited to be here today to learn from an outstanding Goodman alumnus. I would like to introduce Sean Washchuk, Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of CCL Industries. Sean graduated in 1996 with a Bachelor of Accounting degree from Brock University. He's a chartered accountant and accomplished CFO and has over 25 years of public company experience covering all aspects of financial reporting, treasury, corporate finance, tax planning, international financing structure, acquisitions, and investor relationships in a business-to-business environment. Throughout his career, Sean has served in a variety of financial roles with increasing responsibility, including 11 years at Y2k Corporation as Vice President of Finance and Chief Financial Officer. Prior to Y2k, Sean was controller for Next Cycle Plastics and acquired auditing experience at PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP. In 2011, Sean joined CCL Industries and currently serves as Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. CCL Industries is a manufacturer of specialty packaging and labeling solutions and focuses in consumer packaging, healthcare, and automotive industries. CCL Industries employs over 21,000 individuals operating for 180 production facilities in 40 countries with corporate offices in Toronto as well as in the United States. Sean has remained connected to the Goodman School of Business over the years and has attended alumni events on campus and in the GTA. He financially contributed to Brock University throughout his pledge towards the annual giving fund in 1996 and in 2005. Sean is an inspiring leader and has been recognized for his outstanding contributions to his industry and for his dedication to the Goodman School of Business. Now, without further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to Sean Washchuk.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Kasia. Thank you, Dean Godes. It's quite an honor to receive this award. I very much appreciate it. Monica, thanks for that great introduction. Makes everything sound quite glamorous. Never felt like it was glamorous along the way. I was just doing my job, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak about my career. Graduated in 1996, but actually started my career, I believe, in 1992 as a co-op student like yourself, Monica. I think co-op is an outstanding opportunity for anyone who has that chance. It gives you an opportunity to make mistakes, get involved in your career early, determine if you like it, determine if this university education that you've chosen, the path you've chosen is right for you, and how you can evolve your career through co-op. So I started at Coopers & Lybrand in Hamilton, and everyone knows Hamilton. It's an industrial town. It focused me on construction, transportation, manufacturing, steel manufacturing. My largest client throughout my entire tenure at Coopers & Lybrand, from co-op student right through to audit manager, was a waste management company, a premier company in Burlington at the time called Laidlaw Inc. I actually thought during my career at Coopers & Lybrand, I'd eventually end up working at Laidlaw in the waste management or school busing field. A lot of my predecessors at Coopers & Lybrand went there. And my right winger for the Coopers & Lybrand hockey team was their corporate controller, a great guy named Wayne Bishop. So I eventually thought, you know, if I keep working hard at Coopers and keep doing a great job on this audit client, I'll end up working for Laidlaw. That never happened, but I persevered, and I ended up working at a recycling company called Next Cycle Plastics Inc., or New Plast Polymers was our trade name. I progressed from the audit manager role, you know, and I progressed through every role at Coopers & Lybrand, and then became an operations level controller. It was kind of the next logical step from audit manager. You either joined a small company in a controllership position, or you moved into a larger company, maybe as a financial analyst or a senior financial analyst. I didn't skip a step there. I kind of just went on. So Next Cycle was a smaller private equity owned company by Warburg Pincus out of Dallas. I worked in their Canadian operations. Where I worked, it was primarily a post-industrial plastic recycler. So we'd get plastic of all kinds, whether it was off-run plastic bags, parts of kayaks, you name it, and we'd recycle that product into plastic pellets. We also had a small post-consumer glass operation in Guelph. My travel at that time led me to Brampton, Guelph, and Red Deer, Alberta, where we had another plastic recycling operation. While I was here, you know, I got involved in small company stuff. We didn't have a sales forecasting module. We didn't have an inventory system. We had no collections policies. We didn't have a production reporting system. So I got involved in developing all those things. And when I look back at it with hindsight, I don't think I did a very good job knowing what I know now, but at that time, those things that I helped develop worked for that small company. Probably could have done a lot better today with the knowledge I have. I think working at Next Cycle was interesting. At an operations level, you got to make a lot of hard phone calls, call people up or other companies up and ask them to pay their bills. That's a tough call. Hard thing to do to motivate a customer without cutting them off, because you need that customer to continue to buy, but you want them to pay their bills. I also worked at Next Cycle during the onset of the year 2000. Nobody will know this, but Y2k was a really big event. Everyone thought everyone's computer systems would crash when 1999 turned to 2000, because we didn't know how computer systems would handle a double zero in their calculations, I guess. And I developed a Y2k strategy for our operations. It was a really big deal. I think I even stayed home that New Year's because I had motivated myself into being slightly afraid that something catastrophic might happen, and turned out not to be a big deal at all. Moving from Next Cycle, I went to Vitran Corporation. Vitran Corporation at the time was a micro-cap public company. It did happen to be listed in Canada and the United States. It was listed on something called the American Stock Exchange, which doesn't exist anymore. We had a small footprint in Canada. We were right across Canada and in the Midwestern states. We also owned a small post-consumer recycling operation. So the very first project I got when I started at Vitran Corporation was trying to figure out what was going wrong with our recycling operations. And then I ended up getting involved in the sale of that business. After the sale of the recycling business, within a year or two, Vitran Corporation really started to hit its stride as a public company. The share price began to rise. We began to produce some really good results. And our market cap started to go up with that. And we raised some equity money. And right after the equity raise, about a year, I was promoted from corporate controller to CFO. And I think I was 32 years old, quite young to be a CFO, but was fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, working hard, demonstrating the skills of finance and so forth. Along the way as CFO, we did multiple equity offerings, some of which were done defensively, because not only did Vitran hit an all-time high of $28 a share, I think during my tenure as CFO, the share price did start to come off, and by the time I left, dropped all the way down to $4 a share. So along the way down, we had to issue defensive equity. During my tenure, there was something called Sarbanes-Oxley, came out, revolutionized the accounting industry, put a lot of new regulation in place. I'm not convinced it was all that necessary, Sarbanes-Oxley, and Canada obviously went to a modified approach with its Bill 198. But that was a really big deal at the time. I remember calling our corporate lawyers and explaining to them what Sarbanes-Oxley was and all the requirements, and our corporate lawyer, very reputable downtown Toronto firm, very reputable lawyer, said, "Don't worry about it, Sean. I'll get you a waiver. You won't have to do that." He called me back, I think a day later, and said, "There's no waivers. You're going to have to do a full Sarbanes-Oxley opinion." And I remember the staff and I at the time getting on our horses and getting going and quickly developing a Sarbanes-Oxley plan and getting the company certified for Sarbanes-Oxley. At Vitran Corporation, it was my first taste of multinational tax planning strategies, how to invest in the United States efficiently, how to get money out of the United States efficiently, how to handle cross-border transactions using perhaps offshore structures at the time. We also evolved the company while I was CFO. We did 6 strategic acquisitions, growing our LTL footprint and growing our logistics footprint over that time period. So it was a fascinating and fun time, although the share price and the company had its challenges. And then after I left, a few years after, a strong young fellow took over for me, a guy named Fayez Suleiman, and he ran the finance department. I think he might even end up running the company for a while. And Vitran Corporation was then on-sold to another Canadian transportation company known as Transforce. I was fortunate to move from Vitran Corporation to CCL Industries. At that time when I made the move, CCL was probably about $1.2 billion in revenue, maybe just over $1 billion in market cap. We were a small cap company. We had probably around 75 manufacturing facilities around the world. We were trading at $32, $34 a share. But we had a very ambitious leader. We had the backing of our shareholders, our principal shareholder as well. And we've grown the company. And I say we, that's collectively everyone at CCL, not just myself and the group of executives, but all the people at CCL, to 10 billion in market cap. Our share price has grown 1,000%. We've returned a lot of money to shareholders. We've increased the dividend every year for 20, 30 straight years. We're one of few companies in Canada that have done that. We now have, I think, 188 manufacturing facilities around the world. We have a very small corporate office team of about 40, 50 people globally to support probably 22,000 employees. We have a very complex international tax planning initiative. We've done multiple debt offerings while I've been here, not to dilute our current shareholder base. We've bought public companies, we've bought a lot of owner-managed companies, and we take those companies and we evolve them into the CCL culture. Our next big initiative coming up is our environmental and social responsibility, which is happening throughout the world, but we're getting our credibility and our disclosure ready and making sure that we have a real environmental, sustainable, social responsibility initiative and something we can be proud of. Next slide, Katja. So this slide I put together, it's a bit historical and a bit next steps. What's in the world for me and what's in the world, I think, for graduates and people still in business. So on the left-hand side, I think, graduates need to really embrace interpersonal leadership, genuine leadership, respect for people. I don't think you can achieve that through Twitter, emails, text, etc. I think you have to engage with people. It's unfortunate that we all can't be together today physically, but we're engaging virtually. I think you have to find ways to develop that in the future. I think we need appropriate levels of governance. I think we need to have appropriate levels of social responsibility. We need environmental responsibility. I think my generation as business managers is really scratching the surface on environmental responsibility. It has to be in every aspect of business decisions going forward. I think we have to find ways to give back to the communities we work in, both personally and as corporations. I think Canadian companies can do a better job at that. I think we're going to have to embrace the cyber of everything, digital commerce, artificial intelligence. It's something I'm not really strong with, but I think it's something that the upcoming generation will have to engage in. It's happening around us, and it'll even happen in industrial companies like CCL. And I think we all have to figure out how to do that with a healthy life balance. And that's really hard to do, to manage your family, to manage your physical fitness, and to manage what's required at work of you. So that's what I think is what's next. On the right-hand side of this slide, I have something that might be outmoded in the future. And that's a business card. Those are all the business cards of my career. So starting as a co-op student in the top left, when Hamilton was still part of the 416 area code, I had a business card. No title was given to me as a co-op student. Eventually progressed at Coopers and Lybrand. And I was actually an employee for one day at PricewaterhouseCoopers. So that happened July 1st, 1998. And that was my last day of employment at Coopers and Lybrand. But you can see the evolving logos. Same thing at Vitran Corporation, starting downtown Toronto, moving to Etobicoke, the evolution of the logo, the addresses, and same for CCL. A business move, we moved adjacent buildings here at the corporate office, and changing logos. I don't know if we'll ever see business cards again, but they might be digital. But that's something by mistake I kept throughout my career, was a copy of each business card I've ever had. So Andrew, Kasia, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you very much, Sean. I love the fact that you have all your business cards through time. I think I have some, maybe about 60 or 70% of them, but just looking at the progression of how we did mark ourselves and distribute out that information to others is incredible, and how it's modified. I think, I still have business cards as well. I'm probably going to be using them for some time, but you're right, the digital card is definitely going to be the natural in time going forward. There's been a lot of great information that you've offered, your development through time, since you were a student at Brock University in the accounting program through to where you are today. So part of that shows the insights that you're going to be able to offer to anyone who's watching today. So what I do ask is and invite is anyone who's got a question. You'll notice in the chat box next to the screen, you are welcome to add a question in that space. I'll be seeing them, and I will facilitate the questions and ask them to Sean on your behalf. So as questions are being generated, I certainly would like to start with just a couple of questions of my own here, Sean. And so one of the things I'm thinking about is when you think about going from a student, you had the opportunity of co-op, which allowed you to kind of wade into the water of employment. and then get into the full-time employment when you graduate. But was there a moment in time from being a student to going into full employment where you had this aha, where you went, okay, now this makes sense, or now I get it, or geez, you know, what I learned in school may not necessarily be a perfect transition component into employment, or maybe it was spot on. But was there a moment in time that you just kind of, there was a light?
Well, I'll tell you two stories, I think, Andrew. One is when, as a co-op student and transitioning into the accounting firm, it was very natural. I didn't feel like there was any transition there because I was working throughout school. And you were in a workforce where everyone was young. Even your managers were in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. If you're lucky, you were a very young manager in your early 20s. But everyone was rowing the boat in the same direction, and everyone was really pushing to get their CA and take the next career move. So everyone was doing the same thing. I didn't have a lot of aha moments there because I was really eager, really keen, really aggressive to learn more all the time, work hard. It didn't matter to me that I was working till midnight every night or 2 jobs at once. Everyone else was doing it and I was in it. But my first story will be when I got promoted to manager, and we took organizational behavior and management in school. But at that time in the early 90s, I don't think a lot of that had been adopted into business. So I remember I had a young fellow working for me, and he did some stuff I didn't like. And I went out into the bullpen where all the other young people sat, and I gave him heck in front of all his cohort. And, I felt I'd done the right thing because I'd embarrassed him in front of his colleagues. And that's the way people treated me when I made mistakes or did things wrong. Well, he wrote a letter to all the partners in the firm telling them I was a terrible manager. And I had one partner come back to me and say, don't worry about it. You're doing all the right things. He was the older guy in the office. Then a young partner came back to me and said, well, Sean, what are you going to learn from that? Him not backing me at the time, I got defensive. I got angry with why is this partner not backing me? This kid was making mistakes. That moment in time still haunts me today. I think about all that all the time when I have to go give a hard message to someone. I make sure I do it appropriately and I do it respectfully, but I deliver an honest message in a way that they can digest it and work from it and not embarrass them. So that was one aha moment. And the second aha moment when I transitioned, and it wasn't from Coopers and Lybrand, it was when I worked at Next Cycle and I was a young operations controller. I started having people that worked for me that were older than me. And again, I'll say I transitioned from this environment where everyone was rowing the boat in the same direction. Everyone was eager, aggressive, wanted to learn more. Well, I went to a place where people didn't want to work 10 hours. They didn't want to learn more. They wanted to punch the clock 9 to 5 at best. And they had families, they had other things to do. They weren't trying to advance their career. So I had to figure out a way to communicate with them, how to motivate them, how to get the best out of them. And I had to understand what was going on in their lives in order for me to achieve what I wanted to achieve at the company. So, to get the best for the company, the best for my career, I had to really engage with these people. And I think I made some mistakes there too, because I would ask of people perhaps what I expected of myself as a single guy who had all the time in the world on his hands, not someone that had 3 kids and had a whole other life going on. And that was more important than showing up and, doing your billings and your accounts receivable. So that took a little bit of time to understand. And you have to empathize and you have to think what it would be like for them. You have to put yourself in their shoes to do their job, live their life, and then figure out how to bring it together for the company and the well-being of everyone. So that was a big aha moment as well.
Oh, that's great. So in many ways, what you just described in the 2 stories is enabling individuals around you and resourcing them and understanding their position and the challenges that they have, and being able to ensure that you're supporting them. And mistakes can happen, but at the same time, ownership of mistakes and being able to shift and adjust appropriately is important to be able to move forward. And that rather than pulling people, you're providing them with the resources necessary for them to self-propel. So those are important moments, especially as a student when you're used to being the one that's fed and sourced everything, and everything's for the student in many ways, which is the way it's supposed to be, that we're encouraging fulfilling students' aspirational goals. But once you become someone in the workplace and an employer or an employee, it starts to shift, and it's more about how do you enable and source others and provide a richness of opportunity for others. So that is definitely a transformational moment, and thanks for sharing that. I'm starting to get questions now from the audience, and I've got one here that asks of you, Sean. So, given your global footprint, you've described your operations being really very far-reaching, and we've talked about that before when we've had the chance to have conversations. Did you and your team manage your facilities, people, and customers? How did you manage your facilities, people, and customers throughout this COVID?
Well, here at CCL, we're very fortunate. We have a decentralized operating model. So we set a tone at the top, at the corporate level, from our CEO. Take care of your people in the market, meet all the local market safety standards, make sure we do everything to meet our customer requirements, our supplier requirements in those markets. So we're in 43 countries around the world, some of which are sophisticated, some are less so sophisticated. We're from Bangladesh to Germany, from China to Brazil. And then what we did is we shared best health and safety practices across our organization to make sure we're taking care of our people. So each one of our local businesses is motivated to do the right thing, and then they share those right things across our infrastructure. And we were also fortunate, we stayed open principally right through COVID all around the world. It's hard to believe, but a label or a consumer products company like ourselves is a critical service. We made, shampoo still required labels, hand sanitizer still required labels, iPhones still required labels, tablets still require labels. So everything we did was considered an essential service globally. And by putting those proper safety standards in place, we were able to stay open globally.
Wow, that and you were saying, the scale of your operations is so large that, and you mentioned to me that the number of people who were exposed or were diagnosed with COVID was actually, in comparison to the scale of the operation, quite small.
Yeah, we had a very low number of people contract the disease. We've had no fatalities, but our global footprint and where people got infected would mirror what's going on in the world. So perhaps less cases in Canada, slightly more in the United States. What was really interesting was we had very, very, very few, if any, cases in China. So where it all started, we got on it right away, and I think the citizens in China listened to their government and took the appropriate safety measures individually and followed along with the government standards there.
Okay. Remaining on the topic of global, I have a question here from our audience that says, starts with, congratulations, Sean. Great to see a fellow Badger charting new heights. The question is, any thoughts on international diversification, staying in the global category?
Well, our corporation will do business just about anywhere in the world. We have no limitation on where we'll set up a new facility. We generally follow our customers. So if one of our more significant customers, opens up in Tanzania, I'm just picking a place, they generally want to take us along because we're a good partner to have in business. We're in the Middle East, we're in Russia, we're in China, we're in Vietnam, we're in Thailand, we're in parts of South America. So we don't consider any part of the world a closed door to us. But we generally follow our customers or find a good company to acquire in those markets.
Okay, so you're running in partnership quite often with the supply, with the product you're supplying for the final build of organization and operations. Okay.
Not an equity partnership, but a true business partnership. In some of the tougher markets around the world, Sometimes we will find a business partner. For example, in the Middle East, we do have a joint venture there. We do have a joint venture in Russia. We started with a joint venture in Chile, which we eventually bought out that partner, and we've used that model. When we go into a market that we're a little more concerned about, we start with a conservative strategy of partnering with a local entrepreneur that really understands the in-market characteristics. And then once we get comfortable, we try to take on 100% equity ownership.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, and I'm really impressed with the alumni that I'm seeing in the questions. Some well-respected individuals. I'm not mentioning names, but I'm delighted with seeing the participants here. Here's another question for you. Thanks, Sean. Would you recommend new grads to stay with the same large company and move their way up, or move around to different companies, say every 2 to 3 years, and try to move up that way? I think that's a great question. That, by the way, is I think a student.
That's a hard question to answer, because I was never fortunate enough to come out of university and work for a large company. But I know in my career path, I had the appropriate stepping stones to move from, small entrepreneurial company, micro cap, small cap, now a large cap TSX 60 company. A lot of the people we work with in operations have come from very large Fortune 500 companies, like an Avery Dennison. I think each avenue gives you different skill sets and different opportunities to learn. I don't think one is right. I think you have to find the one that suits your personality and suits where you want to be at the end of the day. If you want to be a vice president at a big multinational company and work your way up through that infrastructure, that's a great way. If you want to be in charge of something early on in your career, probably have to go to a smaller company and figure it out that way. So I don't think there's one right or wrong career path. You have to figure out what's right for you.
Okay, but it does sound like you should be looking and scanning and potentially shifting every few years, whether it's within the organization or outside the organization.
I think you do to broaden your skill set, broaden your appreciation for what other people do in different lines of business that pulls everything together for a corporation.
Okay. Thank you. Another question for you. Good morning and congratulations, Sean. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on the future of work, which includes work hours, location, work from home, vacation policy, and etc.
You're probably talking to the wrong guy. So I don't like work from home. I think there can be an element of that. I like coming into the office. I'm in the office today. I miss being in the office with all my colleagues, getting a vibrancy for the business, getting to interact with people daily, providing real leadership. I think it's very hard to build loyalty and culture for a company if everybody's working at home. I think you have to have those people with you. They have to see you. They have to understand that you're working hard alongside them, and the only way they can do that, now this is just what I believe, is if you're doing it together in the office. I think going forward, I've had to adapt how I do work now. I do work from home in this environment. Perhaps there has to be a little more casualness to that, in that perhaps you work 80% of your time in the office and you give people a little more opportunity to work from home. But I think if an employee works from home 100% of the time, you can't build the culture, and they'll jump jobs more frequently because they'll move, like nothing's changing for them. I'm always staying at home. I'm working from home. If someone offers me $5,000 more, I'll jump ship for that $5,000 because nothing's changing in my life. But if you can get them into the office, get them in a team environment, get them to embrace their colleagues and what we're all trying to achieve for the corporation, I think you have a better chance of holding your employees by getting them in the office. As far as vacations go, I think people should travel and take their vacations. I don't think they should miss them. I'm not certain what the right vacation allotment is. Many people in the industrial industries that I work in start with 2 weeks vacation. That doesn't resonate with a lot of professionals, and it doesn't resonate with a lot of graduates, but that's the reality of it. I think that'll evolve over time, and perhaps maybe there'll be longer vacations.
So when you look at that, and where we are now distributed, just by virtue of our environmental constraints, you must still have to try to create that culture through communication in a way that didn't exist beforehand. And especially with the model that you have of being so widely distributed around the world, there must be a communication strategy that's internal to the organization, just for everyone to feel that they're part of the organization. But even now, with your own workplace within the GTA, and then also in the United States where the other main office is, you must position yourselves for a higher level of communication and getting that sense of people, even if they're working from home, still connected.
Well, our CEO has done an outstanding job throughout COVID, communicating probably 2 to 3 days a week at the height of COVID to everyone in the organization, broadcast emails, telling stories, bringing people together. And then again, we have this decentralized culture here. So each business manager, so if you're the fellow, the general manager in the plant in Vietnam, you take that model that our CEOs evolved and you bring it to your plant in Vietnam, and you evolve your culture there along those same lines that our CEO has. So you're communicating regularly. I would be responsible for communicating to my employees here at the corporate office. And that communication was more frequent at the height of COVID. We've really developed a good routine here. I still, we don't have team meetings. I come in the office more than anyone else. I'm probably in 60 to 80% of the time to make sure I see everyone. Everyone else is on a 50-50 rotation. So I'm constantly going out and chatting with people. I also telephone them. This is the best working Zoom meeting I've been on all year. So I don't, Zoom meetings always crash eventually. So you have to make extra effort, but I also have the belief that in the next, 6 to maybe 12 months, we'll all be back in the office working together. I've been lucky that my business unit here in corporate has been stable, and we've actually added to it. We've added a couple people. So that's made it easier. I have great leaders in their functional roles, whether it's treasury, accounting, insurance, tax, finance, and they communicate with their teams. So I would say I'm fortunate now. I think you do have to make efforts to increase communication during this environment.
Yeah, thank you. And, the dynamics of work are changing. And I suspect even in a year's time, when we do come back to some degree of normal in the future, there's still going to be the election of individuals wanting to do part of it from home, or sort of a percentage distribution of what's in the office conventionally, what's at home, and working with each individual in their own way that makes most sense for them and their family. I'm going to mention that this next viewer by name is our president, Gervin Fearon. He's giving a question for us, and he starts with just mentioning this is an outstanding presentation with wonderful information and context of the dynamics of career development. He's asking, might you give some further advice to our students on how they can add value and build success in their careers?
Sure. A lot of this will be cliche, but you want to add value and you want to be successful in your careers. So working hard, working long, if you don't do that, you can't go ahead. You're going to hit a brick wall. So that's the expectation level in industry. You will work hard. If you want to get ahead, you have to be eager. You have to listen more than you talk. Took me a while to learn that myself. So listen, be observant, see what people are doing around you. See why they're doing it. Try to understand when your boss gives you bad news, why did he make that decision? So always think about how it's impacting you, and then think about why your boss or your colleagues making that decision. And then one of the things I did all along the way is I always tried to take away work from whoever my most senior person was. So if I was an audit associate, I would say to my senior associate along the way, hey, can I start doing that for you? So I always got my work done, and then I started nibbling away at other people's work. So even when I was corporate controller at Vitran Corporation, I started talking to the CFO, and I said, hey, let me draft the MD&A. I know it's your MD&A. Let me draft it. You can fix it afterwards. So take the opportunity to start nibbling away work from your seniors, and they'll embrace that you do that. And if you work for the right people, they'll give you credit for it. And I think that's what led to a lot of my progression. And then I think the other thing you have to have is have respect for all your colleagues and make sure you understand what's going on with them. And if you respect everyone along the way, you'll get noticed. They'll expect you to work hard. You will be working hard if you want to further your career. And I call it kind of hanging around the hoop. If you're doing all those things, working for the next job ahead of you, working hard at your current job, respecting the colleagues around you, you'll move ahead in your career because you'll stand out. There's people that just don't do that, but those three things will make you move ahead.
Okay, and then for the intrinsic satisfaction for the individual, what do you think in that space that someone who's new to an organization or working within an organization, they're doing things to advance, but then what do you think they should also be doing for that own personal intrinsic satisfaction and gratification that comes out of a personal fulfillment with the work that's happening? Is there another part to that comes to mind?
Well, I haven't self-actualized yet, so I don't know. I tell you, that's my speech every year to everyone. I'm giving you an opportunity this year to self-actualize. Go for it. I think you have to have things outside of work, create a healthy work-life balance. You have to have moments in time where you get away. I encourage all my people to take their vacation. You need to take moments in time and recharge your batteries. Whatever that is. Some people are extroverted. They want to go out and travel the world and meet 1,000 people. Other people want to stay home and read a book. Whatever that is, take that time and enjoy it. And that'll also give you a sense of accomplishment. I think one of the things that has been really hard for me to do personally is physical fitness. I find that the hardest thing to manage in my time. I have a wife, family with 3 kids. I have aging parents, aging in-laws. I worry about a lot of things. And I think if I took more time for physical fitness, I could probably sort out a lot of thoughts there and be a little healthier. So you try to make time for physical fitness daily. I think that's good.
Yeah. And the self-actualization comment that you made, something just came to my mind is there's a quote from Mark Twain that he says, the 2 most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you realize why. So, to that point, I'm wondering, is that still in front of you, is understanding the day why, or do you feel like you found that and it's allowed you to energize and focus in a new and different way?
I'll have to dwell on that one a little longer. I know that every day I work with purpose, and I think I drive. And then when I say work with purpose, I work here at work and I work in my family life. Neither of the two I feel I've gotten right yet, and I continue to try to do better at all aspects. So I get up in the morning and I work with purpose because I know everything I can do will benefit my family, and I come home as fast as I can at the end of the day to spend time with my family. So, I think my family gives me purpose and I work with purpose. But I'll have to dwell on that Mark Twain quote.
Okay. And the fact that, like you said, there's learning that happens every day. We don't feel like we're necessarily on the mark with everything we do, but the ability and the openness to be able to learn from mistakes and accept that, we're works in progress, I think is an important part of being able to shape towards, better refinement going forward. On that, I have another question for you, and it starts with congratulations and thank you, Sean. As a CFO, what is your approach in dealing with an enormous amount of expectations as top-level executive at CCL while also managing a healthy work-life balance? Seems to be a trend here.
Yeah. Well, it's not easy. How does that sound? I think, establishing a priority list is really important. And on that priority list has to be the things you have to get done at work, the things you have to do for your family, having your calendar planned out as much as you can with key and important dates on it that you don't want to miss for your family, and then figuring out how you want to blend work into it. And like I said, the one thing I've done a poor job at is balancing some physical fitness in there. Could do better at that. I think sometimes the hardest part is when you come home from a really tough day at the office. Maybe you missed something that your boss picked up on and it really aggravates you. You don't take that aggravation home. Sometimes a long commute is good for getting that frustration out. I think going to the gym probably would have been better. But there's no quick solution there for maintaining a healthy work-life balance. You have to work at it every day, acknowledge when you make mistakes, and try to do better. That's it.
Maybe it's not so much a balance as it is a negotiation practice between the two, and understanding where the pressures and the tensions happen at different times in our day and in our lives. But it is it's a conversation that's happening with many individuals and organizations on addressing it. And I'm sure the questions will continue in that space. Another question for you. That was an extremely interesting presentation. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. My question to you is, if you were to hire an accounting grad, what skills would you be looking for?
Well, I got to tell you, I don't spend a lot of time asking accounting questions. My expectation by reading resumes is generally that you have the accounting skills. I spend a lot of time trying to understand your personality, how that will fit, ask you to talk about your career and things you've done, and hopefully you can, as the graduate, you'll tell me some meaningful stories about your life and how you handled those challenges and things like that. I'll try to gauge your eagerness. I'll ask you questions about your personal life to determine how balanced you are in your personal life. And then, fortunately or unfortunately, and I'm going to blame this on GE, you got a 6-month trial window to impress people, to see if you fit in. GE said they fired the bottom 5% every year. Doesn't build a lot of loyalty to your corporation. But because of that, you got a 6-month trial period at any corporation to impress someone, to fit into the culture, to get on with things. If you don't make it in the first 6 months, we move you along. It's unfortunate. That's the reality of the world. So I don't, I'll look at, and I don't even care if you're from Harvard or, Timbuktu College. You tell me some interesting stories about how hard you work. Make sure I can really gauge your personality, though you'll fit in at a role here, whatever that role we're advertising for is, and then we'll get you going. I've met plenty of people in our organization or at other companies that don't have MBAs or even college degrees of any kind, and they're outstanding, smart individuals. The MBA or my CA, those are just early entrance tickets to get in the door. After that, it's all about how you prove yourself. There's probably a million CAs out there that aren't that successful, but pass the exam along the way. So get in the door, fit in, work hard.
Okay. Now, I was just wondering on this question, if you're in a room with an interview of a candidate, what would be questions that you would find really good ones that they ask of you, that you stop and go, wow, that's a great question. This is someone I'm interested in.
Well, any of the questions you've asked me today would be great questions to ask in an interview. But I think you have to gauge the role you're being hired for, and then try to ask some questions about where you think that role can evolve to, and does that also fit what you want to achieve in your career. So we've hired some people. We hired some people recently into our internal audit department, a good little stepping stone from maybe a senior associate in an accounting firm. And I said, you're going to do this job for 2 or 3 years. And then, opportunities will open to become controllers in maybe some of our operations, or maybe step into a role here at corporate. You have to be able to do the job you've been hired for and then do the next job. This recent fellow that I hired, he resigned after 7 months. I think it was a great opportunity for him, but, he wanted to reach for a job that's maybe 2 or 3 levels ahead of where he was currently at. He can go for it. but I think he might miss out on some of the learnings he could have had as an internal auditor, flying all around North America and South America, learning different cultures, learning how they do business and how business is run as an internal auditor, because you do learn a lot when you know, particularly in our organization, when we're highly decentralized and every location is a profit unit unto itself. So take your time, learn the job, ask where the job leads, ask for the opportunities once you achieve the current role, and see if that fits the career path that you're looking for.
Okay, thank you. I'm also looking at another question here, and this one goes to wanting to hear a little bit about the environment, society, and governance, the ESGs, and how it's playing a larger part of your strategy conversations with CCL, given the global context that you face. And you just mentioned about North America and going into South America, and the opportunities that are presenting for an individual that has that kind of a portfolio to work with. So how does CCL look at that?
Well, CCL is in a very interesting position, particularly on the environmental front. We don't have a large carbon footprint. We don't have big machines. We don't use a lot of energy. And we don't necessarily spec the product we make. So we're called a converter. We buy material, we convert it into something for a consumer products company. So the consumer products company will dictate how we make the product for them. So we've offered environmentally friendly products here at CCL for over a decade. They cost a smidgen more than, and by smidgen I mean smidgen, because what we make generally costs a fraction of a penny if you think of a label. But our customers haven't always ordered, or generally have not ordered, those environmentally friendly products. They've chosen something else. So, and we have to meet their spec. We can tell them what we have available, but they choose what they want. I think the current environment, there's a lot more pressure on those companies to buy those environmentally sensitive products or environmentally friendly products. It's starting to happen. There is some inertia, but if you look at some of the reports that are out there by the big CPG companies, they're way behind in their environmental goals. So with that, we're trying to do everything we can at CCL on the environmental footprint. We've signed up for various foundations, various initiatives to make sure we're doing everything we can. We are going to issue our first environmental sustainability report probably within the next few months. We're going to set benchmarks of where we are and then what we want to achieve over the coming years. And then hopefully that will blend into different initiatives on the supply and customer side. On the governance side, there's a lot of pressure in the world today to depict good governance, to have good governance practices. And I would say most of them are common sense, but now you have to disclose your common sense. So a lot of governance rules are put in place to make sure corporations that are run with poor governance adhere to something. I think it's really important that you don't just do lip service to those governance rules or environmental rules or environmental initiatives that are coming out. So I think it's unfortunate that we have to have all these rules for good common sense things, but that's the world we're coming in, the world we live in now. For example, I think Sarbanes-Oxley is way overdone, but that was put in place because there's a few bad actors out there in the world, and they couldn't apply common sense or the good teachings from their mothers to not cheat. So governance and Sarbanes-Oxley rules, the plethora of them that are available today, are to stop the cheaters, I would say.
Okay, I'm wondering, I asked this of our leadership in these conversations, and I get interesting answers on it. But I wonder, is there anything that would keep you up at night?
Yeah, there are a few things that keep me up at night, and it's making sure, well, I'll just say my family keeps me up at night, making sure they're all happy, but I also think of my people here at the corporate office and a lot of the people I work with around the world as part of my family, and making sure that they're happy, they're enthusiastic to come to work. That keeps me up at night. I have had jobs in the past where the business wasn't going the right direction. It was going in the wrong direction. And then you have a lot of sleepless nights worrying about the leverage of the company, how you're going to sustain employment for all the people that work for the corporation. When you're in those situations and you're coming up with new things, or you're worried, will the bank call your loan? You don't sleep a lot. I'm very fortunate here at CCL. We have a high free cash flowing business, and a business that is essential to all products. We're not quite toilet paper and tombstones, but we're going to be around forever, and what we make is required on everything in the world. We make labels that go from functional labels that go in your tablets and your PCs and your automobiles, to decorative products that go on water bottles and shampoo bottles. So we're always around. So, and we have a very conservative balance sheet with low leverage. So right now it's making sure that everyone that works for me is happy, making sure I'm meeting the initiatives of our shareholder base. Those are the kinds of things that keep me up at night, but not jeopardy scenarios where are we going to be able to maintain everyone's employment. I've been there, and it's unfortunate.
Right. So then with that, I'm just also wondering now, how much would you categorize as those things that keep you up at night as being within your wheelhouse to influence, and those things that are just completely outside? I mean, it's almost like losing sleep because an asteroid is going to be potentially grazing our planet. So how much do you think is within your wheelhouse to actually enact a change or to influence and potentially mitigate that kind of sleeplessness?
Well, I think I can be a big player in the culture of my office, a big player with the people that directly work for me as their leader in my communication. So I affect that 100%, and I affect their work-life balances. So huge player in there. One of the things we're battling right now is the insurance market in North America, frankly, globally, it's just awful right now. So how do you battle insurance rate increases and communicating that to other people in the organization that, hey, your insurance is going up, I'm negotiating it on your behalf. You have to understand that we've run this to the wall. You're getting the best price possible, and guess what? It's still going up 30%. So how you communicate that and how you deal with that pressure can keep you up. It's out of my control, but I sleep well at night knowing I'm taking it to the wall every day, giving it my best effort. And if someone doesn't want to believe that, well, I'll get over it in a day or two, because I know how much effort I put in, and I know if I'm doing everything I can, I sleep fine.
Okay, so in many ways, we should, and I'm sorry if I'm paraphrasing or encapsulating, but spend our time on thinking about the things that we can influence or control, and the things that we can't is not really a time to dwell upon, because it's beyond our space.
The only time I've lost sleep, is when you cut corners. Try not to cut corners. That'll keep you up at night. You haven't given an honest effort then.
That's good advice. Thank you. Moving on to the next question here. Congratulations, Sean, and thank you for sharing your career journey with us. I am wondering, as a business leader, your thoughts on mentorship and perhaps how you have had a mentor along the way that has helped you achieve your goals. That's a great question.
Yeah, I've been really lucky to work with some outstanding business leaders. I even learned from the people that work for me today. So, you just got to keep your eyes open, and you're gonna have to ask me that again, because I'm getting a little sentimental, Andrew. I've worked with some fantastic people. I lost my train of thought there.
Okay, just wondering about your thoughts on mentorship and perhaps how you've had a mentor along the way that has helped you achieve your goals.
Oh yeah. So I can't remember. Might have been, I think it was the old CFO at Vitran Corporation. He gave me something to do, and he said, "Here you go. This is a really big job. Don't screw it up." And then he walked away. So he gave me an opportunity. I went back to him when I never went back to him with a problem, and that's one of the things he taught me. Don't bring me problems. If you're going to bring me problems, I don't need you to do the job. Bring me a selection of solutions for your problem. Tell me what you think we can do. So I quickly learned that never bring a problem to a supervisor. Bring them solutions. Anyone can identify the problems. Bring them a list of solutions. Bring them some opportunities. And that was some great advice that my friend Kevin Glass gave me a long time ago.
And I'm just wondering, have you provided mentorship to others yourself? Do you see yourself in a mentorship role with people in your community, really?
You know, I get involved in some of my kids' soccer, golf, hockey. I try to mentor them, and I try to be an appropriate role model. I haven't been perfect there all the time either. I've I do it at work. I think at this point in my life, it feels a little inherent in some of the things I do. And again, fortunate to have great relationships with the people I work with, that we can talk about things. I can be wrong, they can be wrong, and we can work towards a common set of goals. And I think a lot of mentorship comes out of respect for the people that work for you and you work with, and having constant communication about where you're headed, what's wrong, what's the problem we're trying to solve together, and, listening to their thoughts and ideas. And then, ultimately you as the leader make the decision. But if those people that work for you provided the great idea and the solution to the problem, make sure you give them credit for it. And I think that's how I work today.
Wonderful. I want to take the last few minutes here to focus around the point of you being recognized as our distinguished graduate for 2020, and that's about leadership and being a representative of the school that we're so very proud of in our university, and exemplifying passion, perseverance, and professionalism in your work and your progression through your career. I'm just wondering, in all of that, when you think about, you reflect upon your career, your history, where you are today, and you've got aspirational goals, I'm sure, still between now and, career, when you decide there's retirement and even beyond retirement. What does it mean for you when you hear the word leader or leadership? What does that, what comes to mind for you, not only in how you've practiced in your role through your career and where you see yourself going forward, but also around you, and you see people who you identify or recognize as amplifying leadership?
Well, it's those people that stand out in the community or at work and that want to bring people along with them for whatever their vision is. It could be coaching minor hockey. It could be getting involved in administration at a soccer team level. It could be something at work. But those great leaders embrace the people around them. They have respect for everyone. They recognize not everyone is the same. They recognize everyone's a little different, might require a little different motivation to get them going. And then they're able to bring everyone together for a common goal or a common vision at the end of the day. And you work towards that. And you might have to treat people slightly different, but it's always fair and it's always with respect. And that's both giving them credit when they have done a great job, and maybe delivering a message that isn't as pleasant when there's been a mistake made or someone screwed up, and you have to give them a hard message. There's no sense in telling them you did a great job when they made a mistake. You have to create a learning experience, and you have to quickly solve those mistakes to keep everyone moving in the right direction. So there's a lot of good people in the community, and if they can do it with integrity, respect, and for all the right reasons, those are the great leaders out there.
And for you, your trajectory going forward, both with CCL and also your own personal trajectory, how do you see, what's in the future for you, if I can be so bold as to ask that?
What's in the future for me? I think a lot about getting my kids off to university, making sure that they're well educated, making sure that they're achieving their career path or their goals in life, and that they learn to work really hard, because there's no substitute for hard work in life. For my career, I really enjoy where I work. I really enjoy the people I work with. So this might be kind of like the first time in my life where I'm not really looking for the next job or the next career choice, I'm adequately paid for what I do, well paid, I guess, compared to most. But I really like everyone I work with, and I want to see us achieve here at the corporate office. I want to see us achieve as an organization, and however I can work with these people, the board of directors and shareholders, and share that goal, that vision to bring the company forward. That's what gets me going these days, and I'm that's what I want to do. That's part of what gets me up in the morning, I guess.
That's a, you know, I love your answer on this one. And I just want to, before we start closing here, thinking about 2020, this has not been a stellar year for things just moving without, you know, on cruise control. We've had such a difficult year with respect to disruption of how we work and how we live. We've had an election to the south of us, which has been something that no one on the planet can ignore. We've seen a higher level of empathy for people who work in difficult environments and situations because of the distribution. We've seen racism and social injustice on the front priority, high priority lists for organizations and you know, all institutions across the spectrum. A very eye-opening, jolting year, and in many ways, hopefully jolting in a way that means we see shaping and moving forward in a way that addresses challenges that we've seen in the past and also creates some moments for healing. Now, given all of that in this year, I think it's been a year for us to really all stop and reflect and think on how we do things and how we are doing things and how we may do things in the future. How is that for you as an individual within a leadership role at CCL, but also yourself as a leader within the community and recognized today and in this fall with our school? What does that mean for you as you know, as I frame it and put the context around 2020 and how this has been such a year that'll go down in history as you know, massive challenges?
Yeah. I can't wait for 2020 and this whole COVID environment to end. And, you know, that's easy for everyone to say. You know, I like meeting people. I like getting out there. I don't, you know, I like traveling the world and seeing how people interact from different cultures, different ethnicities. And I can't wait to get back at it, whether it's traveling throughout the US or, you know, somewhere in Asia or South America or Europe, and just interacting with my business colleagues or people on the ground. I think 2020, you know, will be a transformative year. I think, to your point, a lot of social injustice people have been made aware of, and they'll bring that, you know, it's been brought to the forefront now. I think people will be a lot more conscious. And I hope we can differentiate conscious from politically correct. I still think you need to be able to have comedians in the world. But I think, and I hope, people will be judged on the merits and the qualities of the individuals they are going forward, and not on all the other things that have poisoned parts of the world. So I think 2020 is eye-opening, and I hope individuals, corporations, communities embrace what they learned in 2020 and you know, get back to getting together and moving forward.
Last question for you. Now that we've had this great conversation, we've talked about, you know, leadership and transformational opportunities. What would you give as your greatest piece of advice to students who are graduating or currently in transition?
Well, have a vision of where you want to go. Maybe it doesn't have to extend 30 years, but it's got to extend 2 to 5 years out. Be patient over that time frame. Learn from the people around you. whether they're the same level of you or as ahead of you. Keep your eyes open, learn, work hard, enjoy the moment, and if you're not enjoying it, make a change. Because if you don't like your job or your career path, getting up in the morning and going to the work will become an enormous burden. And if you take a couple of years and figure out, you know what, this isn't for me, go find something that is for you so that you can be happy and, don't be miserable.
Thank you very much for that, Sean. I want to thank you for the time you've given us today, as well as the time through this fall, because we've had a number of opportunities to meet and have conversation, and I've enjoyed all of it. It's been wonderful to hear your inspiring words today, insightful and filled with wisdom and mentorship through this hour and a half. Your career is truly one, like I reflected about our values of passion, perseverance, and professionalism. And we're really delighted to honor you as our 2020 Distinguished Graduate for the Goodman School of Business. It's a great privilege to be able to recognize you, and we thank you for allowing us to do so. So before we end, I want to, first off, again, thank you so much, Sean. And I also want to invite our Goodman ambassador, Monica Mcdonald, back onto the screen so that she can have some words of closing, and then we'll just move towards closing this morning's session. Again, thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
I would like to extend a sincere thank you to Sean for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for taking the time to tell us about your career journey and how you got to where you are today. I relate to your perspective early on in your career since I'm a fellow co-op student at a Big Four firm in Hamilton, and I find that being in the co-op program provides a unique university experience since it allows us to rotate between the student and worker role, whereby both greatly supplement each other, utilizing the courses and theory work we learn early on and applying it to the workforce once we get to our work terms, and then as well as taking what we learned from the real world work experience and implementing it into our courses. It makes learning some of those tougher accounting courses seem a little more linear and intuitive since it's not all brand new information to us. And as a student, it is so inspiring to hear from professionals such as yourself about how hard work can truly pay off. It motivates students like myself to work harder, longer in order to climb up the corporate ladder and achieve those high credentials one day. Now I would like to pass it on to Kaisha to close the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And thank you to everyone for joining us. It has been a true privilege to hear from you, Sean. Not only have you provided advice to our students and our new graduates on how they can add value in their academic and professional networks, giving an honest effort, being proactive, working hard. You've also provided managerial insights to our more seasoned alumni or mid-career alumni, how to motivate others, get the best out of your employees, or bring a selection of solutions to your manager, letting go of things that are outside of your control. So a lot of really great advice and insights that you provided to us today. So on behalf of all of our attendees, we thank you for your time and your dedication to the Goodman School of Business. Thank you to everyone for attending today. That concludes our event.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Sean. Great seeing you.